All right. We're those of us at the comic book store, Level Up Entertainment, get a group of friends together and we discuss a topic of the week that we're interested in. This week we're talking about the reboot of DuckTales, the current DuckTales Disney. It's on Disney XD, I believe, coming out, but the first two seasons are now on Disney Plus. My name's Scott. I'm from the store Level Up Entertainment. We're a comic book and video game store in Mays Landing, New Jersey. You can find us online, levelupentertainment.com, and we're on all forms of social media as that. And joining me this week, I've got Sean.
Yo, I'm Sean. I'm a cartoonist and illustrator, also South Jersey based. If you go to my website, seanfineran.com, SeanFineran, I just put out a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle comic that's free to read on my site. I'm also on Twitter, that's Finnerface, but there's links to that on my site and everything. But I'm a cool dude. I'm here to talk about some ducks.
See, I always read your social media stuff as Finerface.
Yeah, everybody does. It's my fault, and I'm just going to take that to the grave, pretty much.
No problem. We've got a third person here you might remember from our Ninja Turtles episode. We've got Kendall.
Hey, everyone. I'm Kendall. What about me? I make comics in Philly with my wife. You can check out our superhero series, Star Savior Bunny. It's available on the Tapas web app. And yeah, we're also on Instagram. Come check us out.
And I would like to point out your wife, Kayla, did the special art for this episode, reminiscent of the new opening where the characters wind up running on the logo for the show. They're now running around on the logo for this podcast. It was a nice surprise. I'm very glad she did it. I'm a little sad she couldn't join us tonight, but it happens. We'll get her on the show soon.
Just feeling a little sick.
Yeah,
she's not dead or anything.
No, it happens. Not COVID kind of sick. We have to.
Yeah.
It's just the regular run of the mill stuff. But yeah, like I said, we're talking about the DuckTales reboot here. I think the perfect example of how to do a reboot right. Would you guys agree with me on this?
1000%.
Yeah,
for sure.
Now, Sean, you're a little bit younger than us, but I know Kendall and I were of the DuckTales generation where we grew up on the original Disney afternoon when DuckTales was a big part of that. So I remember in kindergarten running, like being excited to get home so I could watch like DuckTales and Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers and Gummy Bears and stuff. So DuckTales been a kind of it's not been like the biggest thing I've been into, but like I'm a big fan of like the old Carl Barks, Donald Duck and Uncle Scrooge comics. Like there's Disney Ducks are overall one of my, or very least my favorite thing that Disney puts out and has put out over the course of my life. So I was really excited when they started showing off stuff for the DuckTales reboot. I know you and I have similar opinions on rebooting things, Kendall, where if you're going to do it, give us something new.
Yes. Big problem I have with reboots is people like to, it feels
like
quick and cash grabby.
Yeah.
Something original is always a plus, and this certainly takes the DuckTales franchise and the Uncle Scrooge franchise. It is a love letter to what has come before, but it takes it to places it has never been.
I will say that the show very much feels like it's being run by people who are passionate, not just about the original DuckTales show, but like the old Donald Duck, like the old comics and the old Donald Duck like legacy and just the Disney afternoon in general. Like I'm surprised how much Disney. It's essentially a Disney afternoon cinematic universe. In this over the course of the DuckTales show so far, which we'll get into a little bit later. But I think first I want to talk a little bit about how they changed the characters we may or may not know in the transition to reboot. The character designs specifically are very much harken back to the old school Carl Barks comic books. Like Donald Duck's in the black sailor uniform. Scrooge is wearing red. The opening especially is very much comic book. Like they're jumping in and out of panels.
Yeah.
And it's got like the dot kind of coloring. I forget the exact term for that. So where's its the fact that Donald Duck is in it is a big part of that because he was the main character in the comics. All of these characters were created to be supporting characters for him. I do know in the original DuckTales TV show, in reading interviews and stuff, they deliberately did not put Donald in the show because A, they were afraid kids wouldn't understand what he's saying, which I guess was never a problem for them before, but B, they didn't want him to overshadow Scrooge and like some of the new characters they'd come up with, because the characters because the characters they invented for the show were Launchpad, Duckworth, and Mrs. Beakley and Webby. They are not from existing source material. So it's interesting to see how they adapted them into a new continuity that pulls from stuff that existed before them. But I guess we should start with the main character, more or less, of the show. I guess he's the main character still, Uncle Scrooge, we would say, right?
Yeah, for sure.
I definitely feel like the kids have more of a central focus, which is fine. But yeah, Uncle Scrooge is now played by David Tennant, a natural Scotsman. So he's in his using his actual accent, which is exciting. Obviously, we all know him from Doctor Who, which he had to put on a British accent for that. Even though now, if I think that show was made now, they would just let him have his normal accent, which would be interesting. But yeah, some of the stuff I don't think they changed all that much about him. They definitely added some of the edge he had from the original comics, especially in the beginning, because he was originally just an antagonist for Donald, rather. Like he was just a miserly Scrooge type, which hence the name. But I like the dichotomy they kind of brought in, like him being able to play off of Donald. Like he's not just like kind of this like lovable old grandpa type like he was in the original, like the 80s show. I would say he's a little bit, I don't want to say meaner, but he's definitely got more of that classic like stingy, I don't want to spend anything Scrooge type personality.
Yeah, was he like super curmudgeon-y in the original?
Yeah, like I said, he was mostly an antagonist for Donald. He would basically kind of like strong arm him into doing adventures for him for like no money. Or like he would have some sort of scheme or something that like the characters just kind of have to get like pulled into. Like I said, his first comic, he was just a bad guy in it.
Oh wow.
I forget the exact details. It's called Christmas on Bear Mountain, which is referenced in this show later, which is exciting. But like, I forget why he needed Donald and the kids to come to some cabin, and he was like dressing up as a bear to antagonize them. I forget the details. It's been a while since I read it, but the character very quickly became like a favorite of Carl Barks. So it became more and more reasons to kind of get him into stories, and usually kind of came down to like, well, he's got a lot of money, so he can kind of fund things, or like, the Beagle Boys attack, and he needs like Donald and the kids to kind of help him out, like help him defend things. It's the original comics are a lot of fun. Like most stories are told with either one page stories, 4-page stories, or the 10-page stories. And the 10-page stories, it's amazing just to study them just as a comic book fan, because the stories you can tell like these big epic like trade-worthy stories that you would have from like Spider-Man and stuff now, but they're only told in 10 pages, and they have jokes, and they have like big adventures and like beginning, middle, and ends, and they're really just the economy of storytelling. It's really good stuff. I will say that there are a lot of problematic elements from the time that they were made, mostly in terms of like indigenous people being represented.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Be warned if you check those out.
Yeah, the Fantagraphics collections that they've been doing and I've been collecting do present them in their original context with like, hey, they're more their cultural context of the time, which I for as far as like posterity, I'm a big believer in like film and game and comic preservation, but I do think like you do need to kind of have some sort of context for some stuff.
Yeah.
Speaking of, with Donald Duck, like, if you ever watch like Der Fuhrer's Face, the Nazi episode where Donald Duck works like as a weapons manufacturer for the Nazis in it, it needs to be presented in its context. You can't just put that on Disney Channel.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, so I don't know. What do you guys think about the new Scrooge?
I like him. When he's introduced in the show, he's still, I don't know how much spoiler territory we're getting into, but
We'll talk probably some stuff, but you should probably be watching the show anyway.
Yeah.
I don't think we'll get too deep into plot specific stuff, but we will mention things that happen throughout the course of the show.
He's still, specifically for Donald, he's kind of still an antagonist in a way, without just being like, "Ooh, I have a plan to get rich and exploit my nephews."
Yeah.
They have some bad blood between them.
Yeah, and I like that that's not easily resolved for them either.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, there's a bit of drama there that even for a kids show, like even the best in adult television would like have difficulty comparing to.
Totally.
Yeah, I actually can't think of a comparable like modern cartoon that has a similar thing. So like for the first season, what we're referring to is like there is some sort of falling out that happened between Uncle Scrooge and Donald. In fact, this is the nephew's first time meeting him. They didn't even know they were related to the richest duck in the world. I will say one of the things I like with Donald and the kids in this is I like seeing him as more of a family man, which is something we got in the old comics, but it's not something you see a lot with Donald Duck. Like the new Mickey Mouse cartoons, which I really like, has elements of all these characters, but you just see Donald as Mickey's friend because it goes for more of the old school style cartoons. But I really like that. Yeah, it's his uncle and they have this history, but like something shook down, and you find out what it is over the course of the first season, and it's, I think, a really good revelation. I think it's handled really well. Again, I'm trying we won't spoil like something like that specifically here, although we may talk about specific episode events at some point, because I know there's episodes I want to gush about later in this episode, but I think we should talk a little bit more about the reboots. But I don't think Donald is too drastically different from the character we know. He's still, he has all of his catchphrases that he says. He's still like constantly put on with bad luck. And is just kind of like our general schlubby everyman.
Yeah.
You do find out the biggest Donald Duck secret in the history of Disney, though. Why does he talk like that?
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. That is something listeners should go check out for themselves. I really don't want to spoil that.
That's one of those things that like I had seen a clip of online before I actually watched the show, like in its continuity. And I saw that and I was like, oh, this is great. This is, they know exactly what they're doing and they're pushing whatever buttons they can.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite kind of gags in the whole series. Because it is played for a joke, but it's kind of great on, like it works on its own, even as like a serious kind of thing.
Totally.
But yeah, I guess we should talk a little bit about like what were you, when you guys first heard about this? What were your thoughts? I know when I first heard about it, I was like, oh, that's cool. That I don't mind reboots and things getting redone. Obviously, it's DuckTales. It's a pretty important piece of just animation history because it's like the first like major syndicated thing for Disney's television animation. It was hugely popular. The game is one of my favorite games. Like it was a big part of me of my childhood and growing up. And I remember when they first showed the new designs, like I wasn't wild about them, but I saw that Donald was there and I saw that they went for the more comic book style designs. I was like, you know what, this might be really cool. Because there's only two things you need to do to get DuckTales right, in my opinion. It's just likable characters on fun adventures. That's all you kind of need, and you're good to go. You can kind of do whatever you want with that. But obviously, I know I had a lot of people coming, like, they revealed that they were going to give Huey, Newey, Louie new personalities, which to me is the bare minimum of what you have to do.
Yeah, I wouldn't so much say they're giving them new personalities. They're giving them personalities.
Yeah. They're giving them distinct personalities from each other. And I know reading, because the creators of the show, I'm going to blank their names. I'm blanking on their names right now. But they've done a lot of interviews, and they've been very candid about stuff on their social media. So you can tell that they're big fans of these properties they're working on. But they gave Huey, Dewey, and Louie their own personalities. So they're always kind of like a three-headed monster before, where they're all just basically the same character. But I know they said they modeled their personalities off of aspects of Scrooge. Huey, they gave him his like intelligence and kind of planning, like his more of a wits, but they gave them like the flip sides to it. So as they grow up, they can be more like their uncle as they go. Where like he's very much like kind of OCD in his way, where like he needs things to be a certain way, and like he's very rigid and inflexible. Dewey, they made more adventurous. So he's really gung-ho for things, but he doesn't think things through. And then Louie, they made more of like he likes to see the scheme. He likes to scheme, and like he's a little bit more of the money-hungry type, but he's very lazy and doesn't like to work hard, which is very much like against Scrooge's. Like Scrooge has a very strong work ethic. So I like the personalities they gave them, and I love the voice actors. The voice acting in the show across the board is phenomenal, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I know we mentioned David Tennant, but we got, Donald's current like regular voice actor is playing him. I would have been weird if they recast him. But you got Danny Pudi, Abed from Community is Huey. You got John Ralphio, Ben Schwartz doing Dewey. He's doing the character he basically always does, but I enjoy it a lot. Because if you watch like the new Sonic the Hedgehog, it's basically the same character.
But it somehow works every time.
It works every time. I like him in everything I've seen him in.
Leonardo.
Oh yeah, he's Leo in Rise of the TMNT. And again, he's basically playing the same character.
Just another blue character.
Yeah.
And then I forget his name. He's in Saturday Night Live and stuff. He's doing a Louie.
Bobby Monahan.
Yeah, I want to say Moynihan.
I have the wiki in front of me. I'm cheating. So.
Oh, that's fine. I'm glad one of us thought to be professional. But I think
good idea.
Yeah. I to full disclosure, I only rewatched a smattering of episodes in preparation for this, and I kind of refreshed my memory just looking at the wiki summaries for each episode. But I love the way they do the nephews now, and I like that. Because they have such a big cast now, because they've also rebooted Webby, who's played by Kate McCucci.
Yeah.
I was afraid at first because they made her kind of more... Because the original Webby was mostly just like the girl and just kind of always seemed like the kid like was annoying. Like the characters were annoyed that she was involved in the adventure. Like she always kind of struck me, even as a kid, she struck me just like there to appeal to the girl demographic. But I like that they made her a much more adventurous character. Like she's kind of the fourth nephew in a way.
Yeah.
I will say I was afraid when they first kind of were revealing her that she was just going to be Mabel from from Gravity Falls. But I feel like she's distinct enough.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, she's one of my favorites. She's great.
Definitely.
Yeah,
she's the one that keeps me guessing, I think, as far as all the kids in the show. She's the smartest. She knows the most about everything going on, and she also has the most interest in Scrooge, which I think is at least fun for a viewer, because Scrooge has done a lot of crazy stuff, and so to see a character in the show be, Webby's our Han Solo in all of this. She's the relatable, and not exactly, but like when she's the one that's going in and bugging Scrooge about all his ventures. It's like, yeah, no, tell us. Like, I want to. What's up with this guy?
She's Scrooge's biggest fan for sure.
Yeah, and she drives a lot of the early plots.
Yeah.
Because like she wants to know, and like all of a sudden Scrooge's family's there, and she's like, oh, now I can get to know the family a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But it kind of makes sense that she kind of grew up like in his shadow because, you know, she's Mrs. Beakley's granddaughter, which they've changed Mrs. Beakley quite a bit. So instead of her just being the housekeeper, she's both like housekeeper and replaced Duckworth as butler a little bit, but she's also Scrooge's bodyguard, and you start to discover fairly early on that she's got like kind of a secret agent-y past, and she's got a kind of a long history with Scrooge. It kind of makes sense that she's not so much like in his employ, but like they kind of like need to be around each other for team ups and whatnot.
Yeah.
So because of that history, like Webby's had a lot of weird spycraft training. So she's a little, at least off the bat, and I guess probably still now, she's a little more capable than the nephews, I would say.
Yeah. In
terms of just being able to hold their own in the various adventures that they find themselves on. But yeah, Mrs. Beakley's very different now. And Duckworth, since you sort of replaced him, was sort of a mystery for a while of what happened to Duckworth. And you do find out, and I think it's pretty interesting. And it's a neat twist that I wasn't expecting, especially for a kid's show. But he is in it. Yeah.
He's in it. He's more interesting than he's ever been.
Yeah.
Right. I think that's like the overall thing to this show, right? Is that every single character is way more interesting than they had the right to be in the first place, pretty much.
Yeah. Like all the characters. I mean, Launchpad's probably the most unchanged. The only thing they really added to him is he's more of a chauffeur than just a pilot, which I think is cool. He kind of does all of Scrooge's like vehicle stuff. A thing that they added to him is more of a backstory, which we'll get into later, because it involves more of a reboot for a different character, which is my favorite character and was my favorite Disney afternoon show. So we'll get into that in a little bit. But that's like the main core cast, I would say. Each episode focuses on usually a handful of each of them, so they can all kind of get their own spotlight episodes, and you get to build their characters over the course of the show, which is mostly episodic, but there's still ongoing stories and mysteries, which is really exciting and what I enjoy about the show the most. Because I've mentioned it in other podcasts. I love when my stories are driven by characters, like strong characters, and they kind of push the humor or they have a lot more agency in the plot and the stuff going on around them. Yeah. But the Gyro is in the show. Toby Wilde realized he's voiced by Jim Rash, also from Community. He's the Dean, which is super exciting. He's a little bit more of like I guess we'll say like a mean nerd trope, if you guys want to say. But he obviously works for Scrooge. He works for Scrooge full time. Like he works in a lab under the money bin, rather than just being like this kooky old like Doc Brown guy that just lives in the neighborhood. Yeah. So because of that, a lot of like Scrooge's tech just kind of comes from him, and he's more just the general tech guy. See who else is like, I think that's it for as far as like the main recurring characters. There's a recurring character you meet in the first episode that I didn't expect to be a recurring character. Their name is Manny, and that's what I'll say about them. They're a fun character you should discover on your own. But yeah, so I think that kind of sets the stage. We're still in Duckburg. All of the main things, they're still a money bin. The Beagle Boys are still like general antagonists. There's some, Flintheart Glomgold, still like Scrooge's like kind of Scottish billionaire rival, which I'll get into him in a minute. There's a new villain for Scrooge called Mark Beaks, who's like an Elon Musk-esque new type of billionaire, where he's like kind of like a tech company like head. I know he was invented for the show to just be like a new type of like foil for Scrooge, where he's like new modern ways of getting money, becoming rich, where Scrooge is very old school. Like literally he still made his money in the Yukon like gold rush. Yeah. Which they did explain that like, Scrooge offhandedly like found the fountain of youth at some point, which is why he's still alive. Which is fun.
Which is amazing.
Because they do have to establish since they kept a lot of his old school like story intact, like basically his entire history from the comics is still there, and those comics were made like in the 1930s. So he's been around for a while, like both in our reality and in the reality of their show, which is exciting in its own right.
They even hint at that in the 2-part opening at some point. I noticed during my rewatch.
Yeah,
Like he said something about like having to wait another 50 years for Atlantis to reappear.
yeah.
And like the first time through, you're just like, oh yeah, whatever. And then it's like, oh no,
He's been there.
he can wait
He's
another
been there.
50 years. Like,
Yeah, I will say. All right, so let's talk about the first 2-part episode a little bit. Obviously, when they aired it for 24 hours straight on repeat, and then they put it on YouTube. I watched it so many times. I was so happy with what they did. Not just because it was a great start to the series, but as a classic Ducks fan, there are so many references to find that like rewatching it's kind of necessary. So Scrooge has a lot of like paintings and portraits and stuff in his house. They are all either panels or covers from the classic comic books. In his garage, there are so many like references and artifacts from the original series, the original cartoon series. They mention Cape Suzette from Tailspin. They mention Saint Canard from Darkwing Duck. So they already kind of have this like world kind of fleshing out and stuff.
Yeah.
There's so much fun stuff like that but like none of that you need to know anything about to enjoy it, which is the best way of doing like fan servicey references. And they don't just like, there's not like Rogue One where they kind of stop the plot to look at the camera and be like, remember this, push it on blue milk.
Mhm.
But it's just kind of offhandedly mentioned or just details in the background. So like that, I loved the first kickoff to this. It's an introduction to all the main characters. You get to see the like kind of the initial conflict between Scrooge and Donald. You see why they have to kind of like start like living together again. You get like a fun adventure. The first half they like fight a gold-eating dragon, so you get to see like they get to see Scrooge like kind of live up to this legend that he has.
Yeah.
This legendary reputation he has. In the second part, they go to Atlantis, and it's kind of a fun twist on the Atlantis kind of thing that they do. But again, you get to see a lot more of like how the characters interact, and they clearly imply a lot of history between Scrooge and Donald that they don't get into just yet. Because that's the first time you mentioned the Spear of Selene, which is sort of like the ongoing mystery for the first season. Which is fun because then the kids kind of investigate it. Like the adults, when they kind of get wind of it, they kind of shut it down because it's obviously a big sticking point for them. But it's just a lot of fun to get started off with. I will say what sucked about watching it initially is Disney played them the first half the season all out of order. So it really screws up the pacing.
I heard about that.
Because all of a sudden like Scrooge isn't in the first couple of episodes after that. But like they were supposed to, the creators said they specifically had like a Huey episode, a Dewey, like, and then like an episode like out of Duckburg and then a Duckburg episode. Like they specifically were trying to pace it out in a certain way to kind of give everyone like the flavors that they want early on, especially since we're trying to get used to the characters.
Mhm.
Now, unfortunately, they're on the right order in Disney Plus. I looked at that.
Yeah.
I'm not huge into I don't think the Disney Plus app is totally worth it, but that's a different conversation. But DuckTales on it is good. They have the first 2 seasons. As of this recording, we're in the middle of the season 3 hiatus. The hiatus has gone on for a lot longer than I think they did because I think the virus, I don't know if that did something to it. But it feels like I've been waiting for forever for the next episode.
Was the last one the Ragnarok one?
Yeah, it was the Ragnarok one, which is funny because
what a freaking name to throw out for just a kid's cartoon. I think the last one.
I think it's called like Ragnarok and Roll, something like that. But it's funny.
I love it.
One of the episodes I was rewatching, I was just kind of picking out random episodes to rewatch for this because I wasn't gonna have time to rewatch the whole series. But one of the ones I watched was called Last Christmas, which is the Christmas episode, and it's so great. It has so much stuff in it that I love. But Scrooge offhandedly mentions like why he does like he takes Christmas as his time off because of all of his responsibilities and adventures and all the things he has to do. And one of the things he mentions is like offhand is like, I have to keep Yargamander, the world serpent, in check. But then that happens later in the series, and I completely forgot he mentioned that. So I went back and rewatched it, and I was like, oh, that's so cool. So yeah, so if you don't know Norse mythology, Jorgrimmar is the world serpent. It's a serpent that's so big it can wrap around the world. Basically, once it wakes up, like Ragnarok, the end of the world begins. So Scrooge kind of has to deal with that every so often. But I won't spoil how because it's really fun. It's not exactly what you think it's going to be. But yeah, so there's a lot of fun things like that. So I'm wondering how much seeds they've been planting that I just haven't been picking up on so far. So it'll be fun. In preparing for this, I kind of just want to go back and rewatch the whole series up till now.
Yeah, I mean, you'll be fresh with me. I was pretty much behind on all of season 2 up until you guys mentioned to me that you wanted to do this and have me on, which I appreciate, obviously. But so I've been doing nothing but eating, sleeping, and breathing DuckTales for the past couple days, which has been excellent because I get everything super fresh. I still have a terrible memory, so I couldn't recall anything. But
so do I. If it's not important, I can remember it. But if it's like something I need to do, I can't remember it. Like for this podcast, I need to keep a notepad of when we're recording stuff and what it's about. But yeah, I guess I've been watching it as it comes out. I don't go out of my way to watch a lot of TV. This is one that I do.
Cool.
And it's fun because it's Saturday morning, so it's like kind of got a little bit of that. Get a little bit of that kid energy again.
Yeah. It's weird because like I don't have the same nostalgia as you guys for this show, but I grew up like loving Donald Duck and thinking like he was super cool, and it's mainly because I had Donald Duck Going Quackers for the N64 and GameCube, where you just like Donald's in it, Daisy's in it, Gyro's in it. So like I knew a lot of these characters, but I also grew up like knowing DuckTales was a thing and always wanting to watch it. Mm-hmm. So when I found out that there was going to be a reboot, I was entirely about it because like, all right, now's my chance.
Yeah, I was about to say like, cause I was was never big into Disney shorts as a kid. I was always more of a Looney Tunes guy, but Donald was my favorite character. And then except the goofy ones where he was like kind of the everyman, trying to do like sports and stuff like that was always my
classic.
Favorite. But I always liked Donald as a character better. And that's just because like he's kind of like Charlie Brown where the world just kind of keeps dumping on him. Mm-hmm. And then he like blows his hop and goes crazy and like attacks everything. Like that to me is way more fun. But I think between that and like DuckTales and just like I would have like a tape one of the tapes we would rent from our local video store would be like, Professor Von Drake would like teach you like counting and stuff like that. So he'd have Donald in as an assistant. So Donald's kind of always more around for me than Mickey. Obviously, I knew who Mickey was because everyone knows who Mickey is. But I was always a big Donald fan. And then, as you grew, I grew up, I was able to kind of find more of like his old comics and kind of there was more for that character to dig my teeth into. Mickey was just kind of always like happy-go-lucky guy, and Goofy's obviously goofy. But yeah, Donald and like the Duckburg cast that they built around him is always a little bit more compelling,
Yeah. It's not more real.
Yeah.
I think it was a lived-in space.
Well, yeah, he's designed to be like the everyman.
Yeah.
Which is why they give him like family issues and like neighbor issues, and just like he's always trying to get a job. And he can't, he's always trying to, make his way in the world. Mm. Like I said, he's very Charlie Brown-esque in that regard.
Yeah.
But all right, so I guess let's establish the characters a little bit. I guess we can talk a little bit about some of our favorite episodes of the show. Cool. There's two main plots going on throughout the first season. One is what happened with the Spear of Selene and why the family kind of split up. And two, I guess they're kind of setting up Magica Dispel. Yeah, and I guess we can talk about her and we can talk about the villains a little bit because they're some of the returning villains are pretty different. Mm-hmm. So Flintheart Glomgold is way more of a goofy character than he was, and I think a way that's good. He's not just like Scrooge, but like unethical, which is kind of what he used to be. He's a little bit more over the top with his schemes and is a little bit more of a goofy character. I believe he's a personal favorite of your wife, Kendall.
Oh yeah, she loves Glomgold.
Mm-hmm.
With good reason. He is probably the best. In our house, he's the best villain of the show by far. And especially when you get into his backstory, like, whoa.
Without spoiling major parts of his backstory, I like that they've made him Scottish to be like more of a foil for Scrooge, where he's just like basically the same thing but bad. In the original comics, he's from South Africa and was supposed to be South African, and they were able to work that into Glomgold's backstory in season 2 when you finally get it, which I thought was really cool. But like his backstory is actually pretty interesting, so I don't want to get into too many details other than that for it. But like the twist on his backstory becomes plot points later in the second season as well. It's not just kind of like a one and done. But yeah, Flinty's kind of fun when he comes on. He's definitely the goofiest of the villains.
He's so good.
But he's so single-minded in his goal of destroying Scrooge that he's really just kind of fun to watch him try. I love the episode where they like are golfing against each other and like this like magical Scottish world. And I love that there's Selkies in it, but like they look like My Little Ponies. Like they're super cute, but like they're really horrific monsters, like in like Scottish folklore. And they're like trying to lure because what they do is they try to lure people to get on their backs, and then they take you into the water and drown you and then eat you. And the characters in the show are trying to do that, and they're like not being secret about like, yeah, and we'll just kill you and whatnot. Like it's fun for a kid show to like not shy away from some of that stuff when they bring in like the mythology angles when they do that. But yeah, I like Magica De Spell's new version of her a lot. She has a connection to a friend that Webby makes called Lena, who's more or less her niece. So she's kind of like a foil, Huey, Dewey, and Louie style for Magica. But in the first season, you just see her as a shadow mainly, because something they clearly established that like Scrooge and her had a climactic battle, and she lost, and they kind of allude to some of that. Once you eventually start seeing her talking, she's voiced by Catherine Tate, also from Doctor Who fame, which is pretty exciting that they play off each other well because they already had great chemistry. I'm completely blanking on her name.
Donna Noble.
Donna Noble.
By far the best Doctor companion. My favorite Doctor companion relation.
I would definitely say mine too. Also, especially from the David Tennant era, because it's the only one that doesn't try to have a romantic relationship with him.
Yeah.
And I think that works way better. I don't know. That was my favorite David Tennant companion. So I'm really excited that they're back together, more or less. But they made her. Well, she's British now that she's played by a British actor, which is funny because she's Russian in the original cartoon, but she was envisioned to be Italian, which is why her base is in Mount Vesuvius. So it's just interesting that they keep changing that stuff on her. Not that it matters, but they made her a lot more sassy and fun. Like she's a lot funnier than I think. Like she had jokes and stuff. She always had them, but I think the character is a lot more lighthearted now. She's still plenty menacing. Once you eventually start seeing her more for real in the show. But yeah, I think she's my favorite of the current crop of villains. I don't know how you guys feel about her. I also like, who are the other main villains?
She's my favorite.
Yeah. And like we haven't seen a lot of her yet. Like
Yeah. And we're only going to see more, which is super exciting. I love her so much because she is the main antagonist, again, in Donald Duck Goes Quackers.
Oh, I didn't know they used her in that. That's cool. Because she always is paired up with Uncle Scrooge instead of Donald.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's what's weird about it. I mean, we could turn this.
Yeah, we need to do a Let's Play on that.
Yeah, Let's Play Donald Duck Gone Quackers.
Hey, I got it right here. I'm not
into
afraid
it.
to bust this open right
But
now.
the only
Let's do it.
the only Duck games I played is the classic NES games, and then the remastered or what did they call the one that that Way Forward remade?
I think just DuckTales.
I think it was
DuckTales
DuckTales
remastered, maybe.
Yeah. Which was fun. I mean, it's already a great game. But it was cool that it was completely redone into classic animation style, and they got all the voice actors to return, which is exciting because Alan Young, the voice of Scrooge, unfortunately passed away not too long after that. So it's good that they were able to do that when they could. But yeah, so one of the other villains that now reoccurs is Don Carnage, the Sky Pirate from Tailspin.
Ooh.
Which is super exciting because that was another show I was into as a kid. So it's cool that they're bringing in non DuckTales characters.
Yeah, I remember seeing the preview for that episode and just being like, whoa, like.
Yeah, it was something I wasn't expecting, even though they mentioned Cape Suzette. It's still like you think of it as DuckTales as the duck characters, you know?
Yeah, for sure. I was stoked to see him, and that opened a lot of doors. I feel like.
Yeah, I feel like anything can happen now. Like, for all I know, like other Disney villains may or may not show up. Not that I expect Jafar to show up and attack them, but like you know what I mean. Like for all I know, Pete could show up.
Yeah, totally.
Why not?
You know that would be fun. Some the other villains, I guess we haven't talked about the Beagle Boys yet. I really love the new Ma Beagle, played by actress Margot Martindale. But like, so there's a really fun Beagles Boy episode early on, which is clearly inspired by the movie The Warriors.
Yeah.
Where all the various Beagle Boy factions are in town for Ma Beagle's birthday, and then they kind of end up chasing the kids through town. But like they all have different weird there's the creepy clown faction. There's a bunch of different factions. I think there's one where there's extreme sports ones. There's one, isn't there ones where they're like dweebs or something, like really
ugly losers.
Yeah, where they're like really dweeby and stuff, and they're just easily thwarted. But our three main Beagles are fun too. They're the basic. I don't know if they're the same like Big Top Burger, and I forget the other one. I don't know if they're the same Beagles that we had before, but they're basically the same. There's a big one. There's a little like mean one. And then there's like a kind of a lanky one that doesn't really talk.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, you know, a mama bear, papa bear, baby bear situation. But it's the Beagle Boys. They can just invent whatever Beagle Boy they need for whatever situation.
Yeah, I feel like they are maybe the most unchanged.
Yeah.
From their.
And they didn't need to reinvent their wheel.
Yeah, they're. I mean, they just made them better.
Yeah, they're just because they're in a well-written show.
Yeah. There it is.
Yeah. But yeah, so those are kind of the main antagonists. Obviously, there's not really a lot of bad guys, just because a lot of the time there's like, oh, we're climbing Mount Everest, and that's just kind of like the bad guys of the mountain, and you know, like it's not necessarily. It's more the adventure of the adventure of the week. Yeah. Which has been fun.
I mean, season 3 has by far my favorite bad guy. I don't know how deep we're going in, but.
Well, all right. So Sean, you did see the end of season 2, right?
Yes.
So you know they kind of. All right. So we'll talk a little bit about the DW in the room real fast. So Darkwing Duck's one of my favorite cartoons of all time. I kind of like classic Darkwing better than DuckTales. I think it's more watchable now than DuckTales is now. Not that DuckTales 87 is a bad show. I just find Darkwing a little bit more fun because it's a little more cartoony and slapstick. But you know that had Launchpad in it, so it was always kind of a connected to the DuckTales universe. It was sort of a spinoff. The creators of it did say they always viewed it as an alternate reality, which is why Launchpad can be a superhero sidekick one day in a completely different city and then be Scrooge McDuck's pilot the next. But when the reboot, Darkwing is a TV show Launchpad grew up with. It's very akin to like the Adam, like not so much in tone, but it reminds me a lot of like the Adam West Batman kind of show, where it's like, oh yeah, this actor plays this character, Darkwing, but he grew up with the show, and he incorporated a lot of like his like lessons and stuff like into his own personality in the show. So I love that they made Darkwing a part of Launchpad's character, since that he was, you know, his sidekick. He was in every episode of the Darkwing Duck show. Like he has a little bobblehead that says "Let's Get Dangerous." He keeps in his car. I at first I was like, oh, that's a little disappointing that we won't get to see a proper team up. But I really like how they did that. And I was like, oh, you know what? Sci-fi, like they can get zapped into the TV and they have to live out one of the episodes or something. But in season 2, there's an episode called The Duck Knight Returns, which is one of my favorite things that ever happened. And I kind of need to talk a little bit about this episode. So obviously the title for that is a reference to The Dark Knight Returns from Batman from DC Comics fame. It's also the name for the first story arc of the Joe Books Darkwing Duck comics that came out when they started doing the Disney afternoon line. But in this one, Launchpad meets up with Jim Starling, the actor who played the original Darkwing, played by Jim Cummings, the original voice actor for Darkwing. They find out that the Darkwing Duck's getting like a big budget, gritty reboot. So they kind of go to the set to get involved with that. He's trying to get back into the limelight. But so there's a new actor playing Darkwing Duck in it, and they kind of split Darkwing's personality between the two actors, whereas Jim, the original actor, is more of like the selfish narcissist, like in it for the glory version of Darkwing Duck, whereas the other one's more of the earnest like hero. And they gave him all of the slapstick, which the new DuckTales is not a slapstick show, but his character is very much in slapstick situations. But they played that off now as like the characters never give it up. Like he was inspired by Darkwing's never giving up like attitude. Like you get knocked down, you get back up, and that's kind of how he dealt with bullies and stuff. So that's like how he can take a beating and kind of keep going. And I absolutely love that twist that they did. There's a ton of references to Darkwing in the show, in that episode, that I don't necessarily want to spoil right now. But I think it's my favorite way they've done any of the reboot characters. And they kind of set it up now that like Darkwing can show up as a character with the new actor being him.
Yeah, basically the new actor for Darkwing just takes being Darkwing to heart and becomes.
Yeah, at the end, like he and Launchpad have to team up to deal with the problems of it, which is really exciting because the two of like, you know, he comes out and he does the Darkwing terror that flaps in the night thing. And then they're both like, they both like start when they both like kind of get together, like, let's get, you know, they say like, let's get dangerous. And then they kind of fanboy out to each other like, oh, this is so cool. And then they kind of jump into action, which is like, I thought was really fun. But yeah, without doing that at the end, Launchpad's like, you know, you could probably do this for real. And he's like, oh, maybe I'll give you a call sometime. They definitely clearly are setting up them doing Darkwing episodes with Launchpad and Darkwing going on adventures. The only thing that stinks about that, though, is a lot of his villains they showed in the TV show as like fictional characters, so, like all the really crazy superpowered ones. Some of the stuff, though, from Darkwing has made it into like the reality of DuckTales. Like I alluded to with the secret agent stuff, they work for the covert organization Shush, which is, you know, goes against Fowl, which is the secret organizations from Darkwing Duck that he was also an agent for. So that's a really cool thing that they brought into the main DuckTales stuff. So like Scrooge used to work for Shush for a little bit. Now they have Fowl as can be recurring antagonists. You know, the Feedness Organization for World Larceny. I don't remember what Shush stands for offhand. But yeah, I love the world building they've done in it. I think they've set up the potential to do so many cool things. Like I think did we mention this a little bit in our Ninja Turtles podcast, where like the characters are set up in such a way that you can basically do anything with them, and it works.
I'm sure we did in one of them.
Yeah. I feel like they've done a similar thing. It's like they can go on like an Indiana Jones style treasure hunt. They can do a superhero episode with Gizmo Duck.
Yeah, they can go to outer space.
They can go to outer space. They can go to another dimension. they've already done time travel stuff. Like they can basically
casually time travel. Like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, let me check out my watch real quick. Okay. Like, okay.
Well, yeah, because they brought in the time tub from the original series. It's an invention Gyro has. So yeah, they're basically the sky's the limit for them.
Yeah,
And
they can do pretty much anything, which makes every episode like when a new one comes out, it's like so exciting, so exciting.
So I've been overly excited. Has been gushing like crazy. What are some of your guys' favorite episodes or like moments that we've had so far? Sean, we'll start with you since I think it's probably most fresh in your brain.
Sure. Everything with Magica has been great for me. I really like her design. And like I said, she's always been kind of like just this, antagonist in my head since I played, the game as a kid. So I always just thought she was really cool. But I like seeing the character fully fleshed out, having her own motivations and her own relationship with Scrooge and everything. Everything with her is excellent. I like how they handle her animation for her spells, and I don't know. It was a really cool culmination of everything with Magica, I'll say, at the end of the first season. But the other big one for me is the Three Caballeros episode.
Yes, I wanted to bring them up as well.
Yeah, they just like they're another just super cool thing that I've known about forever, and I've now, I'm an adult. I can go to Disneyland whenever I want, kind of thing. And like now I've done my own Disney research, so now I love the Caballeros, and it's excellent to see them get some kind of representation, especially in this. It's like, oh, Donald's really cool, and he knows these guys, and it's great. I don't know.
Yeah,
it's so much fun.
Well, again, that episode to me like really shows like the people behind the show are big fans of these properties because they pull in a lot of stuff from just Donald Duck history in general. So if you don't know, Three Caballeros were a post World War I or post World War II, I forget, effort. The government reached out to Walt Disney to be like a cultural ambassador to South America. So they created Jose Carioca, who's a Brazilian, and Panchito, who's a Mexican rooster, to kind of represent South and Latin America. So they did a thing called the Three Caballeros, and a caballero is a Spanish gentleman. But they made them and Donald like old friends. So they kind of did like a tour through various South American sites, including like mixing like live action and animation. Like Donald and Jose dance with like some dancers in Brazil for like 100 hours. It feels like I think the special is very slow.
Have you been to Bahia?
Yeah, and Paella. But oh my God, or Bahia.
Bahia.
Yeah, it's been a while since I watched it, but it's really cool that they used them. I love that they made them Donald's college band because it sets up the fact that at the end they sing their Three Caballeros song. I'm like, oh, this is super exciting. Because the whole episode, I'm like, I wonder if they're going to sing it. I was like, oh, they did, and I enjoyed that. Speaking of the Three Caballeros, there's a series on Disney Plus called The Legend of the Three Caballeros. It's just its own cartoon where it's about them and they kind of like are world traveling adventurers. It's just like own world, and it's weird because there's like humans in it, but it's kind of fun.
Yeah.
It was only ever premiered in the Philippines, even though it was made in English, so it's like kind of exclusive to Disney Plus now. So when I first got that, I was kind of excited to check that out. It's a fun show. It's not as good as DuckTales, but if you've got Disney Plus, it's worth watching. If you want some more Donald adventure. And that they pull more from like mythology, like Greek mythology. Like one of the first episodes is like they do the labyrinth, stuff like that. They go to the world tree from Norse mythology, stuff like that. So it's fun. They have a fat bad guy. He's voiced by Wayne Knight, and he's funny. It's a little goofier and kiddier, but not that this DuckTales show is like wouldn't be able to be enjoyed by kids. But you know what I mean when I say that, like
it's lighter than DuckTales.
Yeah, it's a lot lighter
in its content, I think.
And they use
not in a bad way.
They use Daisy's nieces. They're her equivalent to Huey, Dewey, and Louie, which are rarely seen. April, May, and June. But it's fun. It's fun just because the Three Caballeros have fun chemistry on that. You know, that so. But anyway, yeah, I love the Three Caballeros in that they come back in season 3. So I'm glad that they're going to be like recurring parts of the world. But what about you, Kendall? What are some of your favorites there?
Well, you know, in this house,
Yeah, I can guess it one.
Glomtails.
I figured Kayla was here. She was going to pick Glomtails specifically.
It's
That was one of the ones I rewatched in the lead up to this. I love his opening that he makes.
So good.
The cheap version of the opening.
Just like his face over everybody.
Yeah. Well, I love at the end, he like in the lyrics, he like mentions that they ran out of money. It's just like stick figures of him moving around. I love his cheap 3D animation.
CG is so fancy.
Yeah.
I love it. I also love, we talked about the first Lena episode with the Beagle Boy's birthday.
Mm-hmm.
Just The Warriors is one of my favorite movies, and yeah,
it's a fun homage to it.
Yeah, it's that one's really good. Duck Knight. We talked about a lot of my favorite ones.
We haven't even talked about Storkules yet.
Oh boy. Yeah.
I like the Doofus Drake episode.
Oh my god, I forgot about Doofus.
Yeah, he's one of my least favorite characters in the original.
Yeah.
And they do him so well.
I don't want to spoil him because he's so different.
He's great.
But in such a way that's different. I also love House of the Lucky Gladstone, because Gladstone Gander is one of my favorite characters from the comics. It's Donald's cousin. So the Duck family tree is actually like a big thing, and like I forget exactly how he fits into it. I can pull up one of my books and it's in the back of all of them. But he is Donald's cousin. But he's so lucky everything in life is just handed to him. So every character hates him, including Uncle Scrooge, and everyone's like, oh, fucking Gadstone. Like, he just coasts through life, and like he's so smug about it. So I'm super glad they use him, and Paul F. Tompkins plays him, and he's like, he does it like the voice. Everyone they cast is perfect in this show. I'm so glad that they're using him. I think he showed up in 1 or 2 episodes of the original series, but like Scrooge hates him because Scrooge doesn't like people that don't work for their money, because he's got a very strong work ethic. They also use Goldie, who's again was a love interest from the Yukon era for Scrooge. I like that they made her more of like a rival adventurer for him, rather than just like this lost love that he used to have. There's so much fun stuff from the comics. They brought in Cousin Feathery as like this weird guy who lives at the bottom of the ocean. He's from the European comics. They bring in in one of the time travel episodes, played by John Hodgman. They bring in Rockefeller, I think is his name. It's a pun on Rockefeller. He's from more recent comics. They said they bring in stuff from all over the place. It's not just a reboot of the '89 show. Although what is exciting is they do show Launchpad's driver's license at one point, and his birthday is the premiere day of the '89 cartoon.
Oh,
that's great.
Because he was invented for that, so kind of is his birthday.
Yeah.
But even then, that puts him at our age, which kind of lines up with his personality in the show.
We I feel like we skipped over the best thing they brought from the original show.
What's that?
The theme song.
I thought you might say.
Yeah.
I'm so happy they kept the theme song.
I was wondering if they were going to, like, the whole time in the lead up to it. This was like, they don't have. It's like, it's so iconic and a big part of the DuckTales identity, but like, they don't have to bring it back, because I'm sure people complain about it that it's not the same. I do like the new version of it.
It's so good.
Yeah,
Love it.
I will say one of my favorite things about like that, the new theme song and the opening in general, is they will change it for the episodes. Like in the Christmas one, they changed it to a Christmas song, a Christmas version of this theme song, sung by Richard Cheese, which is amazing. But like they put like snowflakes and like change it up a little bit. As the series goes on, they'll add characters to the theme song, like visually to it. It's like I think they add. Well, no, I think Gizmo Duck was always in it because I think he always shoots the laser beam out of the panel. But I'm not going to spoil some of the characters they add to it because they become important recurring characters. But like the Darkwing episode, they changed it from the classic DuckTales font to the Darkwing Duck font. Glom Tales, they changed it to be all cheap and like Glom Gold singing it with different lyrics, so it's all about him. But yeah, it's one of the things I like. I like that they play with it. I think that's really cool. It makes it so you don't want to just hit skip episode.
Have you? I was gonna actually. I had notes. I was gonna ask. Like, have you guys skipped the intro?
Never.
Never.
When
I never do it.
When I first watch it, I don't. Because I was trying to cram in a couple of episodes for this. For this one, I was
that's fair.
A little bit.
Yeah.
But generally, I don't. I like the theme song.
It's so good.
It's
the best. It's just the best.
It's probably the best like theme song ever written in terms of just being like an earworm. It's like immediately everyone knows it. It gets stuck in your head. Like it does.
Everyone knows the woo
perfectly. The first episode's called Woohoo.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about calling this episode DuckTales Reboot, but I don't think that'll come through on text. But speaking of Glom Tales, we should probably talk about that episode a little bit. It's a little bit of a culmination of an ongoing season 2 plot, where I think it's a year that the bet between Scrooge and Glomgold, or who can make the most money in a year. The other one they get each other's fortune. But it's like to beat Scrooge, he's like, I got to make a family. Family's the greatest scheme of all. So it's sort of like a villain team up episode, and it's really fun to see these characters play off each other for the first time, basically. So you kind of
Isn't Louis part of the team too?
Yeah, Louis winds up being part of the team, but without spoiling too much of it. But that was one of the episodes I rewatched and doing it. And the episode after that, they bring up a character from the comics, which I just assumed we would never see because he's relatively culturally insensitive. In the comics, there's a thing called Bombi the Zombie, who's made by like a bunch of islanders, voodoo islanders that Scrooge swindled in his past. It's just this zombie that like is always coming to get him. And so Scrooge is always trying to stay one step ahead of him. And it became something that like, it's like this force that goes against that tries to antagonize the richest person in the world. Because he's something you can't be reasoned with. You can't be bought. I forget the rhyme that they gave him. I think it might even be the original rhyme. But basically, his whole point is he's something you can't buy. It's essentially there to keep you humble. But somebody else becomes the richest duck in the world and like doesn't realize that this is a thing. And Scrooge had him kind of like locked up, and they're like, "Well, cut the funding to this. We're wasting all this money here." So I was just excited because that was something I was like, "We'll never see that. There's no way you can do this thing."
Yeah.
In 2020 or 2019 or whenever that episode came out. But I was really excited with how they changed him, and that he was in it at all. And it was a good it's one of my favorite episodes. Again, I don't want to talk about too much without spoiling the episode itself.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of ties into the culmination of that season.
Yeah. And even that is really set up in the beginning of the series. Like that's the rivalry between Scrooge and Glomgold really comes to a head in that episode.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like honestly, it's kind of like the ultimate Glomgold move where the supervillain team up. I don't know how he's going to top that one. I mean, he leaves cursing Scrooge McDuck or whatever. So, he's so popular. He's got to come back.
Sure.
And, I think he's a big fan favorite. So I would be sad if we never saw him again. I can't.
No, I think we will.
I think he shows up in season 3 after. I can't remember.
I know he's a big part of the finale to season 2, right?
I forget. I wanted to rewatch it. I don't want to talk too much about the finale of season 2 because it is amazing.
Yeah,
All right, we're gonna do a spoiler section at some point, because there is a character that's major to the show we have not discussed that I have a lot of things I want to say about. But basically, we'll get to that part. Maybe we'll do that now. Whatever. Unless there's anything else you guys want to talk about, we can do before we dip into the spoilers. I think you guys know what I want to bring up.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Let me just yeah, I think it's going to be hard to progress without going into spoiler territory.
Yeah, and we're not going to go into spoilers too much for season 3 because it's not over. Sean, you haven't even seen it.
Yeah.
So I don't want to get too much into that. But all right, so we're going to start like full on spoilers from here on out. So if this is a show you want to watch, you know, like less spoiled now than we already done it. I don't think we spoiled a couple of episodes, but like I don't think anything that would ruin any of the big plot twists for the show.
No.
So I think if this is something you want to watch, find where to watch it. I know it's on Disney Plus. It might be on demand on Comcast. I know the new season is, but it's seek it out, watch it. It's a reboot done right. It's definitely made by people who are passionate about the property that they're working on. So I highly recommend watching it. And from here on out, we're going to be doing spoilers.
Yeah. If you haven't watched it, you don't listen to us. We're just 3 dudes talking about, just go watch it. Turn us off, go watch it. It's so good.
So one of the main, all right, so we're in spoiler territory. So one of the main stories for the first season is what happened to Della Duck, Huey, Dewey, and Louie's mother. To me, the big question is who is their father? Because in the comics, we know that that Donald's got a sister named Della, and she's their mother, and something happened to her. There is I think it's Spanish. There was a Spanish comic where she left the kids with Donald and went on an adventure into space, never to return.
Oh, really?
So, without getting into too much spoilers, I guess we find out she's been crashed on the moon, which is where she's been their whole lives. And I think I texted you, Kendall, when they revealed that she's on the moon. I was like, "Oh my God, do you think that she's on the moon just as a reference to the DuckTales video game?" Even though I knew it was from the comic, I was like, you know, because that was a deliberate move that they did. Because she wasn't lost on the moon; she was just lost in space. In that, I was like, all right. In my head, I'm like, that's going to be the only reference. The moon theme is Della Duck's personal theme. I was not thinking we were going to hear the Capcom moon theme from the NES game. And when that came on in her episode, where like they show like what happened to her like over the course of the 10, I think they said 10 years. I think the kids are 10 of being stuck on the moon. I was so excited. But no, so Della becomes a main character in the show, and it's interesting to see she's more or less a brand new character. We've never seen her interact with the boys at all. So it's interesting to watch her like. She was like a big adventurous character. She would go on adventures with Donald and Uncle Scrooge. When she got lost in space, that's when they had their big falling out. Donald blamed Scrooge. Scrooge blamed himself. So he kind of withdrew from the family. Donald took the kids. They were eggs at the time, and basically has been their dad ever since. But one of the things in the comics, again, they always have the family tree, and Della Duck was always on it, but the father there was always a branch in front of him. So they specifically always obscured who that character is. So we've never had any idea who Huey, Dewey, and Louie's father is. Not that we need to. I don't think I wouldn't care if they're like, what happened to Della's husband? Or whatever the case may be. But I think she's a really fun addition to the show. I like the episode. I like when she comes back. There's like an episode with her and like each of the boys. They kind of need to get to know each other for the first time, basically.
Yeah.
But I know that's a big mystery that the boys are trying to solve throughout it. And there's conflict amongst them themselves because like some of them aren't sharing things, and such good character moments throughout it. Like I love the episode where Scrooge meets his parents, who are still alive because he relocated their castle, but like it's cursed or something, so it gave them immortality. So he's like, oh God, I still have to deal with my parents. That's also the episode where Launchpad has to pretend to be Donald Duck, and that's really fun.
Yeah.
Well, he's like, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, and just the Donald thing is like a normal person. But no, it's a great episode for the kids. I don't want to get too much in spoilers for that. But we can talk about the end of the season stuff now that we're in spoiler territory, if you guys would like. So if you guys, so Sean,
Yeah,
I know
wanna
you're a
talk
big
about how
Magica
much-
guy. Yeah.
Well, I wanted to say earlier when we were talking about Webby.
Yeah.
Webby like destroys Magica. Like she's the only one who can get a punch in, but she lands several. She kicks Magica in the ribs, and it's amazing. So I'm in love with Webby because of that. Like she's excellent, but also just Magica's really cool. I don't know, she's just cool.
Yeah.
I don't think she's the most deep character in the world, but I really liked her relationship with Lena. That was really scary. I remember reading on Twitter about like notes from the team who work on the show about how, like how when Magica takes over Lena and whenever she pours out, it like comes out of her eyes and her mouth and stuff. It's really scary, creepy.
Oh no, like there's some great scary stuff.
Like they had Yeah. Like it's so cool. I forget if they said they had to push really hard to be able to do that, like scary stuff, or if they didn't have to push at all and Disney was like, oh, that's creepy, do it, or whatever.
That
But
doesn't
either
sound
way,
like Disney to me, but yeah. I mean, Gravity Falls has got some scary stuff in it.
Yeah.
I would say that's a very comparable show to this.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big reason I had so much faith in this show, because Disney's animated series leading up to this have just been some real quality stuff, and DuckTales is like cream of the crop. Like it's hard to really compare the two because Gravity Falls told a much tighter story and is done.
Yeah.
But like it's got kind of a similar tone to it, and it's again another great character show. So actually, Kendall, you and your wife are the ones that convinced me to start watching Gravity Falls, and I'm so happy you have.
That's great.
Yeah, I think I was at your house when we were watching it, and at the end, Shmebulak is throwing up a rainbow for the entire end credits. It's like, all right, I'm going to keep watching this show. But again, talking about DuckTales now. But yeah, so again, the first season's building up for Magica coming into her power, as it were.
Yeah.
They had the ticking clock of the full moon, because her power is over the shadows in the shadow realm, so she like makes everyone's shadows come to life and is evil.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so we want to talk about Donald's voice a little bit because that's when we. Or do we
so
want
good.
Cheadle in the spoils? Yeah. So it turns out Donald's voiced by Don Cheadle.
This whole time.
Gyro makes a device to put in his throat so people can understand him, which is called like the Barksian device. Obviously a reference to the Carl Barks from the comics. But all of a sudden, like he's super like, but yeah, Don Cheadle does his voice and he says all these cool things and people are like, have you been saying all these cool things this whole time? I love what, like Dewey mentions is like, I kind of, or like some of the kids are like, I get every other word. Sometimes you just got to get it from context, which is kind of how you have to understand Donald to be.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Oh, it's so great.
If I'm recalling correctly, Don Cheadle goes into some classic Donald, like, just he explodes, like, he throws around his,
Yeah.
Oh, phooey.
He says, oh, phooey. He does it. Yeah, something real big happens. He looks at the camera, it's like, oh, phooey.
Yeah. But it's just Don Cheadle. It's so good.
It's one of the best gags to ever exist.
Oh my God. That was like one of the most brilliant things I've seen on television.
I don't think I would have come up with the gag to have Donald even have a regular speaking voice as a joke for a minute. And B, I definitely would not have come up with doing it with Don Cheadle because like, what a random thing, but like it works so well, and like he's got such a good voice for it. Again, we don't want to get into season 3 stuff, but they do something similar to that later. So when Della's on the moon, she meets a bunch of like people that live on the moon. They live in a city of gold, which is another thing from the comics. Essentially, like they're being duplicitous, and they eventually the culmination of season 2 is there's an invasion by the people of the moon, and all of the heroes kind of team up. So I got to see Darkwing and the DuckTales crew like finally do something. There's a part where Scrooge and Darkwing have to trade costumes because he needs to like slip in undetected, and he does the pogo bounce on things from the game. I was so excited. I was like all I wanted. Yeah, I don't know. I think that was more exciting though for the setup for season 3, where they set up that Val is essentially like pulling all the strings like in their world behind the scenes. They show a bunch of villains that are involved with that, including the Phantom Blot from Mickey Mouse fame, and one of them named Steelbeak from Darkwing Duck, who worked for Fowl in that. Which there was a lot of Fowl agents in Darkwing. I'm hoping that they can bring out. But Steelbeak does show up in season 3. Another classic sitcom guy. I don't remember his name, but he's Dennis Feinstein in Parks and Rec. He's Derek in The Good Place. He's Adrian Pimento in Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and he's great. He's so different from classic Steelbeak. I was wondering if they were going to give him the same Brooklyn accent like they did. They didn't even try, which is fine. Like I said, I like when they give us something new, but I don't want to get too much into that episode for spoilers' sake.
Wasn't there like a evil bull who's part of?
Yeah, there was a couple other characters. I'm not remembering what they were. Those are the two that stuck out to me. Yeah. But there was also a Fowl agent that they showed earlier that was trying to get the juice from the gummy bears that makes them bounce.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, she's one of the characters that kind of comes out of the shadows and you see them. But yeah, in classic Fowl fashion, the 3 heads of it, like you never see them out of shadow. In this, they're characters we've known, and when they reveal that they're in Fowl, they kind of go into shadow, and I was like, oh my god! Like,
it was fantastic.
And so far, the 3rd season's been has been paying this off, where like they're working against the McDuck family. But it's exciting now that we've got Donald and Della are back, and like everyone's kind of like they're at like the height of their like power, as it were.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see. The kids have more friends. Lena's a more regular character. Webby has a new friend. I don't remember who she is, like what her name is.
The library.
Yeah.
Why can't I remember her name? Oh.
The one that Lena gets real jealous of. I like that the Junior Woodchucks now aren't just like the Boy Scouts. Like she's a member of them as well. So it's like a multi-gendered thing. I like that Launchpad's still like Scoutmaster for it, which is fun. I like that casually it's revealed in Junior Woodchucks events that she has 2 dads. I'm like, oh, that's cool.
That's always nice.
Just as subtle representation. Not that they need to make. They're also like 10. I don't want them to have relationships with anyone yet, other than like their parents and stuff. I also love that the kids' relationship with Donald, like they're clearly embarrassed by him all the time, but like they do care about him. He is basically their dad, because that does show through sometimes in conversation and stuff. It's not like just Scrooge kind of replaced them as like their parental figure,
Yeah.
Especially when they have a falling back out at one point, right before the first season ends, and they kind of, but then Magica shows up and they kind of all need to come together to save the day. But yeah, what else do we want to talk about that's spoilery? I mean, there's so much Disney Afternoon stuff in it. We mentioned Don Carnage. I mentioned the gummy bears are referenced in it. Season 3 has some more stuff. I don't necessarily want to spoil.
Same as it even like is expanding beyond Disney Afternoon. There's like a really big Disney star who shows up in season 3.
But he's
I know what you're talking about. I've seen that.
So let's talk about it. I didn't want to spoil it.
Unlike Twitter and whatever.
Yeah.
But and Scott and I have talked about it.
Yeah. So Goofy shows up.
So cool. So good.
There's an episode where they're on a sitcom for some reason, and Goofy's their wacky neighbor, which is a great one because the show they're on is called Quack Pack, and the kids are dressed in their Quack Pack outfits, and like the characters from the original series are in their original series outfits, and that's kind of fun.
For those who don't know, Quack Pack was an awful.
It was bad, yeah.
Like mid to late 90s update of DuckTales.
Yeah, because we had Teenage Huey, Dewey, and Louie, and with Donald Duck. There's no Uncle Scrooge, but like, it's, I don't know. Yeah, it was bad. I remember not liking it as a kid, but I kept trying to watch it.
Yeah, it definitely was trying to like.
It was trying
It's
to be
like,
too
oh,
hip.
if we take the success of DuckTales and Goof Troop,
Yeah.
we're gonna have this mega hit, and it was just.
But I love that it's Goof Troop Goofy, because he like Max doesn't show up, but he clearly like talks to Donald about being a dad, and he shows like a bunch of like the accordion type of photograph thing in his wallet. It's got a bunch of pictures of Max, and it's got that girl Roxanne from the movie, which is cool.
Yeah.
So that's exciting, and it's cool. It's just cool to see that version of Goofy again, because I loved Goof Troop as a kid.
I kind of feel like they're starting to, like, I feel like Goofy is a dad is starting to become the norm for him, because I know Max shows up in like a Christmas special or something.
Yeah, one of
maybe
the
in a couple of them.
I know in one of the CG ones Max comes back, but like Goofy's had such a weird career in shorts. When he was like George Geef for a while, and he was like a family man and had kids and stuff. Like Goofy's got a weird history with his stuff, but like that's part of what makes Goofy fun. But like I think people of a certain age like us like really love a Goofy movie. Like and it's a great movie, but like I think Disney's kind of realizing that, because they bring up Powerline in it. The concert they're trying to go to, because there's a part where like I forget who Del is bonding with, but they listen to that in the plane. Like they listen to a song from it, and they're both like singing and doing the dance move from it. So that's I kind of forgot about that. I think that happened in season 2. That's your first Goofy extended media reference. Like Mickey Mouse hasn't shown up in it, but there's a part where Donald's been like stuck on an island for a while and makes a Mickey Mouse out of melons. Yeah. So it's like a melon and like 2 melons for the ears.
Yeah, and definitely supposed to be like a play on Wilson from Castaway.
Yeah, and it's fun because it's Mickey's voice actor plays his voice in it, who plays the young Darkwing, who I guess since we're in spoiler territory is revealed to be Drake Mallard. So they're definitely setting up that like Darkwing's going to be a real thing in their world.
And what's the Jim Cummings guy's name?
Jim Starling, yeah.
Jim Starling at the end of his episode.
Yeah, so he's presumed dead because there was a big explosion he kind of saved them both from. But like because he's kind of his mind kind of lost his mind and has become Negaduck, which is exciting because he's like,
what a brilliant way to
he's like
introduce
he's like, they want grim and gritty, I'll give them that. And then like because Jim just does a subtle thing with his voice, and then he is Negaduck because he voiced both characters originally. And it's so good, but like they set that up throughout that episode, even so much for him like using a chainsaw at one point. It's so good. But like they just set it up in such a way that he's not irredeemable, at least not yet. It's not like he's murdered a bunch of people yet. But like he could show up as a recurring villain for like Darkwing doesn't even need to show up. Like he can just fight Scrooge for some reason. I'm excited for the Darkwing stuff they could potentially do.
Yeah, same. I was a big fan of Darkwing.
Because there's certain characters like they can bring in like Taurus Bulba as just like a mob boss guy. Because there's like some of his less like outlandish supervillains that they haven't already shown. Because I think they showed Megavolt, Liquidator, and Crackerjack as TV show characters. I think.
Is Taurus Bulba? He's the big bull guy.
Yeah, he's the bull. Yeah.
I think he might be part of Fowl.
Oh yeah, I think they've revealed he's part of Fowl in the original Darkwing stuff. Because there's a part where he gets like blown up or something and comes back as like a cyborg.
Yeah, I think he might be part of Fowl in DuckTales.
I don't think they showed him in Fowl yet, but that would be cool. I'd be down. To be fair, we haven't seen a lot of Fowl yet, even though we've seen like a lot of their machinations. I love the new version of Steelbeak, so I'm excited to see more of him. And that episode is nothing but references to other Disney afternoon things.
Oh yeah.
Which
very special guest appearance.
Not even that, but like because of the spy in this, Launchpad's like pretending to be a spy in it named 00 Duck. which is a reference to the Double O Duck episode where he was a spy, which is, he did James Bond thing. But that was the spin-off they were working on that became Darkwing Duck. It was supposed to be Double O Duck. So to me, that's fun that he's fighting a Darkwing character in that, since that was like what that show was originally going to be. But I like that they made Darkwing more of like the spirit / Batman character, even though he is a secret agent because he works for Shush in that. Anything else spoilery?
The end of season 2. I guess we can go into the fallout from the Glomtails episode.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, Louis tricks them both and becomes the
Louis. Yeah, Louis has had this arc where he wants to be rich and he comes up with all these schemes.
But they're all like easy get rich quick things.
Yeah, and his family starts getting like real sick of it. And then he just comes up with the best scheme and he ends up as the richest duck in the world.
And that's when Bombi comes after him now.
Yeah, and it's so good. And
yeah.
And I feel like in the grand finale, he has to, basically his attitude kind of separates him from his family. But yeah, during the moon invasion, they all come back together.
Yeah, I was going to say, because I know I mentioned that they modeled the kids' personalities off aspects of Scrooge McDuck, but they gave them like a negative thing that kind of holds them back, just so they can have a character arc. Obviously, as Louis' big thing is he's got to learn to like work, the value of hard work. Dewey has to learn more about thinking and not just rushing into situations. Huey has to like work about not being so rigid and being able to like improvise and stuff like that, like loosen up a bit. Like these aren't deep things, but the fact that they have character arcs that still aren't done, like it's exciting because then there are more I love characters that build throughout the series, even though the adventures may be episodic. Sean, do you know about one of the major Disney characters they bring about in season 3 in the Return of the Three Caballeros episode? Because I don't want to necessarily spoil
Maybe
it for you.
not. I think the rescuers show up at some point.
Yeah,
if that's a different
Rescue
spoiler.
Rangers show up at one point, but they showed Donald and Daisy meet for the first time.
Yeah.
I didn't know if you knew she was in it. Easily the best version of Daisy Duck I think we've ever got, where she's just not a horrible nag. Because she's always been, again, just kind of like give Donald like just more things to be put upon. He has to have like a really troubled relationship. It's like the inverse of Mickey and Minnie, where they're just on the same page all the time. Daisy and Donald are not.
Yeah, this is a lot more believable that they'd be.
Yeah, and that they kind of would be attracted for each other when they have their meet cute. But it's also got the episode also has the Return of the Three Caballeros in it, so it's a good episode to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Jose and Panchito are fun. I hope they show up more often. I have a feeling they might do like a classic Simpsons style setup for their seasons. So like the Simpsons, they used to have like, all right, we're gonna have a Sideshow Bob season, we're gonna have an Itchy and Scratchy season, we have to have a vacation episode. They might have a Three Caballeros episode, they might have a Darkwing Duck episode. They probably have an episode like for each character, like to be like more of the main character. But I'm not gonna know that until they're done season 3, because season 3's been a little different so far. It's been more like a team up, like a group adventure each episode, which I've liked. More guest stars. Jaleel White shows up as a character, which is super fun. Kendall had to point out to me that it was Jaleel White, because I didn't pick up.
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
Unless he's doing the Urkel voice, I don't recognize his voice.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I know the episode. I was like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, he plays a character in the Quack Pack episode.
Yeah.
Which I think is like episode 1 or 2 of the new season.
I think it's episode
early.
2.
It's early, I remember.
The first episode is like Junior Woodchuck.
First one's
up
Woodchucks,
sets up like a season-long quest.
Another season-long quest, which they haven't done. It shows it's a quest for the family to do. They don't really know about the foul plot yet. But there are episodes dealing with the foul plot against the family. It's just the main characters don't know yet, which is going to be fun when that stuff starts coming together.
Yeah.
But yeah,
how do we feel about now that we're in spoiler territory? Duckworth.
oh, having a ghost butler, I like that.
I love it.
It's
So
fun that he's got like a monster form, so like he can battle things. But I like that he's just he's still doing the butler thing. Because he's a ghost, he just kind of comes and he goes. Like, he doesn't need to be there all the time.
Which is kind of what he was in the original DuckTales too. He was never important. He just like...
Occasionally shows up, does a sarcastic, witty remark or whatever. It is fun in the Glomtails episode when they, like, storm the mansion. Like, he comes out and, like, Magic is like, oh, a demon butler. How exciting. And just throws out a gem that's like a ghost trap and just sucks him up.
Yep.
I was like, so it gives like Magica something to do since he does magic things. I think it's fun. I think they can probably do more things with him. Oh my God, we can talk about the ghosts of Christmas past, present, and future now.
Oh, that was amazing.
That might be my favorite episode. It's called Last Christmas, which I don't know if it's a reference to Wham, or just because they're going back to past Christmases. And so in the beginning of it, Scrooge is set up as like, he actually says bomb humbug, and Webby's like, oh, he said it.
Yeah.
But like, so Scrooge hates Christmas and like is getting away from the family and they're celebrating or whatever. It's discovered that he hangs out with the ghosts of Christmas past, present, and future and they go to different Christmas parties like throughout time, which is kind of fun because he's like, it's my one night off, which I mentioned earlier. So they go back to a Christmas party that Scrooge had when they were younger. You get to see young Scrooge or young Donald and young Della.
Yeah.
Which Donald's a lot of fun in it, but he's voiced by, unfortunately she's since passed. I forget her name, but she used to do Minnie Mouse and she did the Three Nephews before, which was exciting. But like, again, like Don Cheadle, she gets to say, oh, phooey and oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, and stuff. And a much more, and she does the Donald like mad scream where he does the one arm like hanging. It's a lot. It's so good. It's also the show. I'm a big sucker for Christmas stuff. Like, it's, so the message is about like, the value of family at the holidays. But like, I love Christmas Carol. It might be my favorite story ever. And Mickey's Christmas Carol is probably my favorite version of it, just because it's 20 minutes and it gives you everything you need. And also, if Scrooge plays Scrooge, it's the part he was born to play.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there's references to that because in that the Christmas Past is Jiminy Cricket, and he's a cricket in this. The character designs kind of are reminiscent of their designs in Mickey's Christmas Carol, for the Ghost of Christmas Past and Present and Future. And then the end credits are like the sketched out way that the credits are in that special. Oh, we're talking about the openings being redone. That's when they had the Christmas one with Richard Cheese, and it's like got snowflakes and all kinds of stuff in it, which is again a lot of fun that they play with that stuff. But yeah, now is there any other episodes you guys wanted to hit up before while we're in full spoilers?
I mean, it's hard to pick them.
I know
they're all. I don't know. Are there any stinkers to anybody? I struggle to think of some that are just like, ugh.
There's episodes that are lesser, but I would say there's any that are
like there are some episodes that like hit a little bit less. There's no, oh shoot, that's goofy, and there's nothing like that, and every single episode.
Yeah.
But they're still way better than like your average other cartoon. They're still way funny. The animation's always great. The polish is there.
There's no episode I would say is bad. There's just episodes that are better than the average episode.
Yeah, there are episodes that are like, oh, that was good, and then there are episodes that are like,
whoa,
which is ridiculous that DuckTales, and like, brilliant cartoon.
It's really good. Highly recommend.
I love it.
All right. So I think I don't know how bold a statement this is, but in terms of like reboots, I think this is the best reboot of anything we've got. I know we're all Ninja Turtles guys. that has a lot of really solid reboots in it. I think I like the DuckTales one in terms of just looking at it as like how it takes the source material and like reimagines it. I think it's my favorite of
So
anything.
I mean, I like Ninja Turtles more than DuckTales, but
Yeah.
I can't say that any Ninja Turtles reboot is done better than the DuckTales reboot.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, you can like other things more, but I'm trying to think of other like reboots. Like, I know it's not a high bar. Reboots are usually notorious for like stinking.
Yeah, and I think it's almost the perfect thing to reboot. Like,
Yeah.
everyone fondly remembers the original show, and just like these characters have been around for so long that like it's not really taboo to. I feel like with anything else, it's like, oh, they're rebooting this. Like,
Yeah.
I like
you get
Thundercats
those
Roar.
like nerds
Yeah.
who are like, oh, I can't believe they,
Yeah.
did this. And
Oh, I'm sure this show had a lot of those people too.
Definitely.
I mean, I'm
But
sure
there
it
was-
did, but it's more acceptable to reboot these Disney properties that are kind of older than like fandoms.
Yeah.
Like Disney properties, like they're older than like your Marvel universe, your DC. Like
Yeah.
a lot of these characters have existed before. Like,
You know what's funny? I was thinking about this when the Sony Marvel movie rights kerfuffle that I think happened last year. Is Disney worked so hard to extend out the copyright thing for before things go into public domain, because Mickey Mouse should have been in it for years. That if they didn't do that, Spider-Man would have been in public domain by now, and they could have just used him and not have to worry about Sony. So I did think that was funny, but you're right. They've been around for freaking ever. Like almost Mickey Mouse has been around for almost 100 years.
yeah. It's wild.
It's
rat is
insane.
90.
Yeah. So is there anything in the future that you guys are looking forward to from this franchise? I think the thing I would like to see the most isn't even necessarily something that would be in the show. I want a new game in the vein of the classic DuckTales games. You can either play all as Scrooge, or I would love it if you could switch between different characters and they have different abilities. And it's like kind of a Metroidvania, like adventure type of game.
Or maybe even like a Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze thing where you like team up with the different nephews for different abilities or something.
Yeah, something would be cool. Yeah. That's what I really want. I especially after seeing all the love that the NES game got in the show that I did not expect. Not that Capcom needs to make it. I think someone like WayForward, who helped make the remake for the original game, and they also make some of my favorite games, like the Shantae series as an example. They make some really high quality games with lots of great animation. Like, I think they're the studio to do a new DuckTales.
Yeah.
I would love to see that. That's my dream thing for this franchise to go for next.
I don't know if you've seen it, but they're like the creators of the show made a pitch for a new game.
Oh, really? I have not seen that. It
keeps getting like denied, but it looks beautiful. It's like using backgrounds from the show and high quality, and it's exactly what you're talking about, and it looks amazing. I'll try and find it and send you a link, but
I would love to see that. I would love that's what I would like. I mean, in terms of for the show, I'd like to see more. I mean, I'd like to see more classic Disney and Donald Duck specifically stuff brought into it. But really, I just want to see whatever the creators have next. Like, they've not let me down so far, but I don't know if there's anything in particular you guys would love to see them try to tackle or reincorporate into the series, or what you would like to see.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're doing a great job. I am hoping in this season, so not saying that any nephew is more important, but I feel like season 1 Dewey played like a huge part in the overarching story.
I agree with that.
Season 2, it was Louie, so I'm hoping we see Huey kind of get a nice like big arc this season.
So
That'd be nice.
I wouldn't say we've seen a much more of him proportionally than the others yet so far this season.
Yeah, I just feel like
But I know what you mean. Like they're not like, yeah, all the characters get spotlight episodes and they all get to contribute. But I definitely know what you mean. Like Dewey's more the spearhead for finding what happened to their mother. Louis had much more of a character, much more character focus, and like his schemes had more fallout throughout multiple episodes.
yeah, so I would love to see Huey, and I think there is like he's like a junior woodchuck, and that plays a big role in the first episode, which
yeah, he kind of sets up their like treasure hunting thing, so maybe that he'll play more of a role on that end of it.
Yeah, that's all I'm really like, oh, I hope, like, I don't know. They've kind of,
I don't know if there's any like character you'd like to see them see more of, or a character that hasn't shown up yet, so you'd like to see them to tackle. Like I don't know.
I want to see Mickey.
I would say I don't know if you want Mickey to show up.
I mean,
I don't know
I think they could do cool things, but also I'm totally fine if we don't see Mickey.
For me, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. That's fine. I was just gonna say something about Mickey Mouse, but yeah.
I do worry about maybe this could even be the plot of a Mickey episode. Like Mickey Mouse is just like huge, you know what I mean? I worry.
Like a big celebrity in that world.
I mean, they could definitely play that into the plot. It's just like that would be my concern with a Mickey episode. Is like, is Mickey too big for DuckTales? Would he just like?
That said, I would love to see an episode where if they bring Goofy back as a bit more of a recurring character, I'd love to see an episode where it's like a classic Goofy, Mickey, Donald, like adventure, like maybe they're ghost hunters or whatever, some of their classic adventures. That might be fun. Or they like reference like their history together.
Oh yeah, that would be great.
Yeah,
I
think they could do something fun with Mickey. I don't know.
I just want to see what like his role is.
Yeah.
In this world, like.
Well, Sean, if you brought Mickey into it, what would you want to do with him?
I really don't know. I feel like I would make him just kind of exist. Like I don't know. Like I like how Goofy is. I mean, and again, this is was kind of different, but like he was just kind of a neighbor. Well, like I don't think
it's like a big guest star for them. Like you got to have a big guest.
Yeah.
Because the episode's been around it being a TV show. So that implies that people know who Goofy is. I mean, obviously the audience, us, knows Goofy. Because like I do really like Mickey, Donald, and Goofy's dynamic in the Mickey Mouse shorts that they've been doing, which is the only time I've ever really liked Mickey shorts. They're really good. They're also on Disney Plus. You should watch them. But they're kind of the opposite of this, where it's just like goofy one-off things. They're very much in the vein of like old school cartoons, which is fine. It's a totally different thing. Which Scrooge and the kids show up once or twice in it to be jokes. I love the one where the Mickey, Donald, and Goofy all switch bodies because Pete punched them so hard their brains just went into each other. So Goofy's Donald, and Donald's life is just terrible. So there's a part where like Scrooge shows up and like, "Where's the $5 you owe me?" And the kids show up and they're hitting him with spitballs. And like Daisy's yelling at him, and like everyone's just like coming at him at once. He's like, "Oh my god!" And like, but like in that one, I think Donald's Mickey, and he's like, "Oh, everyone loves Mickey. I'm so happy to get everyone's attention and adoration." And he just gets real sick of it at some point. Like that's a fun episode. A fun Donald episode. There's some really great ones, but like again, they are a classic triumvirate. And now that it'd be one thing if they never brought Goofy in at all, but now that he's here, like I think people want to see what they do with Mickey.
Even just design-wise, I want to see what he looks like in this universe.
Yeah, because everyone's so much more angular, but Mickey's whole thing is these 3 circles, you know?
Yeah.
I think that'd be fun. I think that'd be something they can do with it.
I mean, I'm just curious.
I'd like to see more Darkwing stuff. I'd like
Totally.
to see his base set up with a bus that when they go on a chair, they spin around, and now they're in a lair. Although I have a feeling, because they kind of really, like, Darkwing just had money. So since this guy was an actor, I don't know if they're going to, like, and he, like, lost his job at the end of that episode. I don't know if they're going to have to go into, like, where he gets his gear from. Because they Launchpad offhandedly asked, like, when they're doing the reboot, was like, oh my God, one of the questions he asked is he going to still have his motorcycle? So I wonder if they're going to try to rebuild that. It would be cool.
I wouldn't be shocked if that appears in the next.
Because Gizmo, we haven't even talked about Gizmo Duck, Lin-Manuel Miranda, all that much.
Yeah.
But he's fun, kind of learning to be a hero because he's Gyro's assistant. He and his mom are very different than what they used to be, where he's more like technically minded instead of just being an accountant. His mom, instead of being a couch potato, is a cop, so she's a little bit more involved. She's got that classic, like, I don't like Gizmo Duck's vigilante ways. She'll leave it to the police, whereas that's her son. His girlfriend's in it. Oh, she's an agent of Foul too. I forget her name. But she was just another person that worked for Scrooge and was just a damsel in distress. So I like that they made her like more of a tech person, like to kind of compliment him. And I like their chemistry, no pun intended, together. But I like that the Darkwing character is already like, oh, we can do this better than Gizmo Duck. They already kind of don't like him because that's a classic Darkwing dynamic with him. And he's jealous of Gizmo Duck, basically. Because he's like Superman to his Batman, where he can do all of these great heroic things, and like he's still kind of in the shadows. But yeah, no, I'd love to see the two of them have to team up. There's so many characters from Darkwing they can bring in that I think would be a lot of fun. I just want to see him and Launchpad go on more adventures because I do really like this version of Launchpad, even though they didn't reinvent the wheel with him, which is fine.
I think he's great though. Like,
well, he has some of my favorite jokes because there's a part where they're in the sun chase at the plane, and Della, because she's also a pilot, it's like, oh my God, like the dials and stuff, are these stickers? And like, well, adults call them decals. Like I thought that joke was really funny. In the Darkwing episodes, like, oh, big budget reboot of this thing I loved as a kid. Those are always great. I thought was really funny. Like I think he's got the most jokes in it that I like the most.
Yeah, and I mean, like, the wheel really didn't have to be reinvented with it. Like, if you think the Launchpad character is like, what, like 30 years old or something?
Yeah. And he's like,
whereas, like, a lot of these other, like the nephews, you have to reinvent. Like, they were created back
now.
when.
Well, I liked it because of the, like, Dewey's new personality. Like, he and Launchpad became like natural, like, friends. So like it's like because they play off each other real well and they kind of have similar, like, enthusiasm for things. But so because of that, like, I like that they have a relationship, like, but I'd like that because everyone's a little bit different. Like, I'd like the pairings that you kind of get a little bit more because the cast is so big. Most of the time, they only break off into like groups of like 3 or 4 at the most. Because then when they come together and like it's usually like big monumental like multi-part adventures, and that's always really fun. Because it's really cool to see all the characters together. Like the end of season 2, they all pose for a picture that someone takes for some reason. But you know, you get to see the whole family, and like you see Darkwing and Gizmo Duck, and like I think Cousin Feathery and stuff are there because they all kind of had to come together to fight off the moon, the invasion from the moon. Oh, when Glomgold teamed up with them, I forgot.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had to team up with them because it affects the whole world. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he has to
and he like rubs it in.
Yeah,
like Scrooge's face.
He had to help save the world. Yeah, I think doesn't he end up taking credit for it? Like,
yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I forgot.
Yeah, there's plenty of Glomgold. Oh
my God! So since we're in spoiler territory, the episode where Glomgold like steals like 15 cents from Scrooge and it drives Scrooge insane. It's so funny.
Yeah, I love it. I love when he thinks Scrooge is dead and like rolls up
he rolls up to his funeral like gloating and stuff.
Yeah, oh, so good, so good.
Oh my God, I gotta go watch this show some more now.
Yeah,
I when I was just trying to cherry pick it, I ended up just starting to watch the next episode because I want to watch the next one. So Yeah, I guess if you watched us talk about this for 2 hours, you know that we like the show, and you should really go watch it.
Yeah, go watch it.
Because there's still
Yeah.
tons of stuff we haven't spoiled. We haven't really talked about Storkules and Zeus and stuff yet. Like I said, they pull in from a lot of different sources, from real life, well, from actual like real world mythology and folklore and stuff. Like I didn't even mention there's a Wendigo in this. There's all kinds of cool stuff. It's really cool. Really one of my favorite shows on now. I don't go out of my way to watch a lot of TV as it happens. This is one of the few I will. And I want to make clear, it's not because I avoid spoilers. In a long time ago in real life, I realized that like it's so much more energy than it's worth to avoid spoilers, that I just generally don't care anymore. But, I try to respect that for people, which is why we saved some spoiler talk for after a break here. But I follow it because like I'm really just excited to watch the next episode.
Yeah.
So I can't wait. It's been like 6 months. It's been way too long.
Yeah, hopefully it gets back soon. And
Well, I mean, again, there's plenty of time for people to catch up if you haven't already.
Yeah.
Probably my favorite show going on right now. I'm not gonna say it's my favorite cartoon. I also just watched Avatar for the first time, so I have kind of really high bar at the moment. But yeah, it's really good, worth watching, especially if you're stuck at home. I don't know if you're still quarantining or if you have to end up quarantining or anything. It's a very good bingeable show. I guess that and Deep Space Nine a couple episodes ago we talked about how bingeable that is. Both highly recommended. And then in the comments or whatever, let us know what you think of the show. If we're way off base, let us know what your favorite characters or episodes are. But I don't know about you guys, if there's any last thoughts you want to bring up. I think that'll do us tonight.
yeah, I think we've said all that needs to be said.
Yeah. Well,
Look out for our Let's Play of Donald Duck Going Quackers. Make sure you subscribe, ring that bell,
yeah. We'll. I'd like to talk about our sponsor, Skillshare. No, I mean, I guess the store sponsors this. I just do this out of my own time. No one pays me to do this.
Yeah.
Which I've mentioned in the show in the past. I do this for my own amusement. Since we're all stuck and being separate, it's a fun way to talk to my friends and get to see you guys, and I get to, people that don't live in the area anymore that I don't get to see on a regular basis anyway. I really been enjoying doing this, and if people happen to watch us and enjoy us doing it as well, all the better. But yeah, so thanks Sean for coming out. Thanks Kendall for joining us.
Yeah.
So give Kayla our love. So yeah, I guess I'll be signing out. So I guess until next time, guys, be safe out there.